There we go. Now we're going live here with the Kaufman Corner podcast. Remember, if you catch us via the podcast, you can always be a part of the conversation Sunday nights at 10 p.m. We stream live here with the Kaufman Corner. We've got a lot to get to. JJ Picollo talking at the general manager meetings this week. Chris Bubic is a starter, according to JJ Picollo. Daniel Lynch might be as well, not expecting to make a move in the starters market. We're going to talk about that. Brady Singer, what's his status with the ball club? He continues to talk about adding on-base percentage. Some rumblings that maybe Chris Bubic and Alec Marsh are potentially on the trade market. What value do they have? Are they more valuable as trade chips or as guys throwing for this team? We might even get into who they extend next after Bobby Witt Jr. got his mega deal. Who would you target? We're talking about it right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Back at it here on a Sunday with the Kaufman Corner podcast. Rany Jazayerli, technical wizard. We like to refer to him as just a magician when it comes to the electronics, Rany. Well done, my friend.
Thank you. I am a doctor, not a software engineer.
So we can't confirm that now?
Well, as long as you can hear me, that I'm happy things are working. I'm not going to push my luck here.
Yeah. This was the moment it all became clear. I love it. We finally found out this is your true calling. Let's just start with a quick overview. The comments of JJ Picollo that have made its way around. If you're a Royals fan, you've probably seen him somewhere. I know Andy Rogers, who appears on our radio station with the New Day with SSJ, she's a regular Royals insider with them. Was one of the places that had all the comments. What just an overall reaction to what you were hearing from JJ as we get our first, little bit of a peek into what their plans might be this offseason?
Well, generally speaking, I was happy with what he said. His stuff made common sense. He talked about getting a lead off there. He talked about the fact that Chris Bubic might be better suited in the rotation than as a middle reliever. So, I certainly didn't have any agreement with what he said.
Yeah, and I'd like to, I like the fact that he, number one, the plan is the plan, right? Like it's not just like something totally different this time around. We're hearing him, what he laid out for everybody. What he said was their direction is what their direction is, going to be. I think that's a good thing. And I think that, they seem, I should say, easy for me to say, singular of purpose in what it is they're doing. Let's dive right in, Rany, get your thoughts on some of them. One quote, Chris Bubic was in the bullpen this past year, but we believe he's a starter. Is that, we can talk a little bit about Bubic maybe being a trade chip for the Royals, but what do you make of that? Do you agree that one, he should be a starter, or is this just a comment to maybe up his trade value to try to say, boy, look at what he was as a reliever, but we still think he's better as a starter? Do you think this is where they want to go? Do you think they're making a mistake if they put him back into the rotation?
I think that's where he belongs.
Wait a minute. Do I have you speechless with that question? I mean, I'd like to take a moment to enjoy this if that's what just happened there.
Either I'm speechless or my audio quality is even worse than we thought. According to the commenters, I think it is.
What is it? I hear you fine. Randy's coming us poltergeist dimensions.
This may be worse than we thought. We may want to restart and try it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hear you fine. Everybody in the chat room, hit us up. let us know. What you think, but yeah, you've got audio issues. It's fine at my end. Rany reboot. Everybody's looking for a reboot.
Maybe we should restart.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh no! Listen, I'm going to tell you, restarting it means a lot on my end. It is not as simple as your end. You go out, I'll talk. You come back in, see if you can figure it out, and we'll get it done. Rany Jazayerli and his audio. Here's a reason why maybe you show up to work a little bit early, people. I will tell you that. We do have a lot we want to cover here on the Kaufman Corner, and we'll see if we can get Randy's audio. This has been the problem. We may end up punting. We may end up having to redo everything, but we will see. Rany, the technical wizard, is echoing, is what I'm hearing. So I think he's got multiple audio lines going right there. But we do have a lot we want to cover. I'll talk about Chris Bubic a little bit here while Rany gets dialed back in. And that is, look, I think you got something that's really worked. I know as a starter, he showed a bit of a glimpse back in 2023 before he got hurt. He had a new pitch. That was going to be the thing that was going to make him more valuable. But I'm not sure that, messing with what ain't broke is really a good idea. Chris Bubic seemed to find a home. He was dominant at the back of the bullpen. And I'm curious as to where you're going to use him. What is going to be the plan? I think this might be part of the sales pitch to actually talk about him in a trade. Chris Bubic and Alec Marsh's names have been mentioned. Brady Singer, his name, has been talked about a lot, but I'm not so sure that Bubic and Marsh might not even be guys because they've got more club control that could bring you more, certainly for teams that are further away. If you're going to go knock on the door of teams that feel like they should be contending next year, let's be honest. The Royals' performance this past year, where they went out and had the kind of success that they had after winning only 56 games, I don't know that there's a general manager that sits in baseball right now that's really safe, that can sit there and act like, well, we've got a 3-year plan. We're still a couple of years away. The Royals have really largely blown that up with the way they performed this past year. I think every general manager is going to be, being held accountable. And I think if you go trading with the Royals, they're going to expect you to come away with something that makes you better right now and not just be fueling their fire. All right, we've got Rany back. We will give it a shot and see. Rany.
Testing. Is that any better?
I don't know. You were always fine to me. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out in the chat room what people say. You come through to me just fine. So
I'm so sorry I had to leave you to speak extemporaneously on your own for a few minutes, something you have absolutely no experience with as a podcast, as a radio host for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. For
everything is always a technical marvel in the world of radio. Nothing ever goes wrong. Everybody seems to say, yes, world's better, perfect, Rany. So we have survived our first. It's not even our first. We've actually had these problems before, but we survived it.
Okay, no, but comment section is approving. So
yes, but Chris Bubic. I mean, what do you think about him going back to the rotation? Is this because I think it's as much a sales job to generate interest in Chris Bubic as it is the idea. I'm not saying he can't do it. I think he very much could. But is this is this simply what he's got to say to make the player happy because the player wants to be a starter? Because, everybody can't be in the rotation. So what's your view of it?
I mean, I think, and I'm biased because my opinion of Chris Bubic is that he can be a starter. And what I saw from him in a very brief opportunity last season before he blew out his elbow was that his stuff was playing in the rotation just fine, that he actually had established himself with his new pitch, his new slider, working, with Brian Sweeney's magic, that he could be an above average starter in a rotation. It was a very brief glimpse, but it was enough for me to think that keeping him in the bullpen permanently, even if he pitches as well as he did this year, is a bit of a waste. I'd rather have 170 innings or whatever of that guy in the rotation, even if he's not an elite starter, even if he's a 3.50 ERA kind of starter. I think that's still more valuable than 70 excellent innings out of the bullpen. My feeling is that JJ is saying this in part because they believe that, but in part, like you said, because if a team comes calling and is willing to willing to give up talent in order to get him, like we've talked all about Brady Singer being on the trading block, but Chris Bubic works just as well, right? If the price is right, I do think Chris Bubic is available. And why sell yourself short by telling the world that he's a reliever now and lowering his trade value. I think he's going to have more trade value if teams see him as a starter. I think the Royals see him as a potential starter. I think that they certainly aren't ruling it out. But between now and spring training, if they get somebody who prices him as a starter and offers you a trade package that values him as a starter, that they will consider that as well. So I think it's win-win to say we see him as a starter now because, regardless of whether or not he will be in the future, pricing him that way is beneficial for the team right now.
Yeah, I agree. And they don't have to make the decision right now. Guys get hurt in spring training, what have you. You send everybody in saying they're a starter, and then you figure out what you've got and you move back whoever you need to move back. What about Alec Marsh? Or let's talk about Daniel Lynch first. Let's take them in order. Because he also, the other thing he said was Daniel Lynch went to the bullpen and did a nice job, but he's another one who could be a starter.
We were both landing on the same word there, right?
Yeah.
The word could. Like, to me, yes, he could be a starter. That, to me, they've seen more of Lynch in the rotation than Bubic, both in general, but also specifically this year. And it was a very short glimpse, but Lynch did not look great as a starter. He looked exceptional as a reliever. He's had several years to establish himself as a starter. And you could use him as a starter on a long-term basis, but he's a number 5 guy at best, right? Like he's borderline in that role. He showed himself to be something more than that as a reliever. So I think their preference for him is that he will be, in the bullpen as potentially a very good 7th inning, maybe even 8th inning guy. But same thing, if somebody out there prices, saw what they saw from him in the bullpen late in the year and values him in a starter role and is willing to pay you starter prices, he's also available. Again, why cut yourself off from that? But my guess is Bubic is ahead of Lynch in the starter pitcher rankings, power rankings internally from the organization. And I think that they, all things equal, that they will have Bubic in the rotation and leave Lynch in the bullpen.
By the way, I do want to take a minute. We would be remiss if we didn't mention that Cotman, who you see regular, I think people who are regular here for the podcast is keep the depth seem smart, considering how healthy. Always one of our best firing in there. Apparently a decent guy as well, because I believe Ciara, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, reached out to us and said that you're celebrating your 10th wedding anniversary, Cotman, and said, hey, maybe you could give a shout out, so a little happy anniversary for one of our great listeners of the podcast. I'll just take this minute here because I didn't want to forget when I saw Cotman firing in there. I'm like, wait a minute, I think it's this week. It's the 14th is his wedding anniversary, and it's your 10th wedding anniversary. So
congratulations, Cotman. We should also say that your wife outed you by saying that when you were on your summer trip to Hawaii, that you still listen to the episode live.
Yeah.
So I want to, we admire the dedication, but let me just say this for you, and more importantly for your wife. From Soren and I, you have our permission when you are on vacation in Hawaii.
Yes.
Download the podcast. It's okay. You can listen. You can listen after the fact. Please enjoy your trip to Hawaii with your wife, and we'll be waiting for you when you get back. But congratulations.
Yeah. It is. Yes. We are quite proud to have you as a listener, and congratulations. So I did not want to forget that. So when I saw Cotman firing around there, I'm like, we got to make sure, because we almost did it last week. We had to look at the email closer. So you got a good one there. So take care of her, because she on your behalf reached out.
Seemed like a keeper there.
That's right. All right. So now, listen, Daniel Lynch back in the rotation. No, like I'm not. Hasn't that ship sailed? Aren't we far enough away from that? And do you think that the talk of him being in the rotation puts any trade value on Daniel Lynch?
I mean, again, it won't hurt to say, we're thinking him in that role, but I think realistically teams saw what they saw from him as a starter and as a reliever. And I think teams see, he's one of those tweener guys who just doesn't quite have the stuff to be successful in the rotation, but does have the stuff to be successful in the bullpen. I think the industry probably sees him more as a bullpen guy. Unless they see something in his, delivery or in his repertoire that they can tweak. But as is, I think he's a good reliever. I think he has value. I just don't think he's necessarily a starter. And I think, I think Bubic probably has more trade value for that reason, because he has not proven that he can't be a starter to the degree that Lynch has. I would, if you told me right now one of those two guys is getting traded this offseason, I would guess Bubic for that reason.
Yeah, I think because of the value, like you said, I think that's the reason. And listen, you're gonna have to give something up that's good if you want to get something back. So the idea, let's trade all our. Asa Lacy is not bringing back a premium return as much as we as Royals fans would like that to be the case. All right, here's another one from JJ Picollo. We don't expect to be in the market for a starter moving forward. I mean, they're just that deep that even if that's the value, like I will object a little bit to this one. You go into the free agent market. I mean, I think it was great that they had the shopping list last year. I think this is one of the things that's going to be interesting to watch. I want to see this. We'll get to the on base part here in a little bit, but I want to see him tick off the way he ticked off last year. We need a couple of starters. We need a bat, and you can make a case. And we mentioned Hunter Renfroe got hot and was a quality bat for this team at times, and at times when they really needed him. So I have no problem with the Hunter Renfroe deal. And what they've done. But a lot of times when you go out saying we have to have this, this, and this, and you have this budget, like I think you can end up making bad deals where if you're like, well, we weren't in the market for a starter, but I mean, Greg Maddux in his prime is $7 million a year. Sign him, right? Get him. Like, I'm going to tell you, Trent Williams, I'll give you a football one since it's football season, the Kansas City Chiefs. Trent Williams was available from Washington in a contract holdout. And the 49ers got him, I think, for like a third and a fifth. And the Chiefs ended up then, in a bidding war and lost out on him at left tackle. After watching the Chiefs, as we tape here on a Sunday night today, struggle at left tackle, it would have been nice to see Trent Williams play left tackle. Well, at that time, they had Eric Fisher, and they had Mitchell Schwartz on the right side, and they didn't think they needed a tackle. A year and a half later, they didn't have either one of those guys. And so when premium talent becomes available, you grab it. Now, I don't know what that premium talent would be. I just don't like the idea of saying we're not in the market for. You're always in the market to make your ball club better and to make a good deal. So
I'll tell you one pitcher that is technically not a free agent, but sort of is, that I'm hoping this is all a brilliant subterfuge from JJ so that teams are not on the scent when the Royals end up being the surprise bidder for Roki Sasaki from Japan, because we just learned that Roki Sasaki will be posted. Now, he's actually not technically a free agent because he's not 25, and actually whatever signing bonus he gets applies to your international signing bonus limit. So in other words, he's not getting more than about $7 million from anybody, not annually. That's like his one-time signing bonus. So please, JJ, I hope these comments do not indicate that the Royals are out of the bidding for Roki Sasaki. I don't think they're going to get Roki Sasaki. But the point is, like you said,
let's be serious about it. Don't you think it is? It's clearly a statement that they're not.
Well, I think Sasaki specifically not being a free agent he's really more. He's coming out of the amateur acquisition budget. Like whatever team signs him is basically saying we're not signing any other player internationally, meaning Latin America, anything for an entire year. Which I think for a guy who is expected to walk into a rotation and be at least a number 2 starter and possibly a number 1 starter from day one, like he's the best pitcher in the world who's not pitching in America or for a major league team right now. I think of him a little bit differently than as a quote unquote free agent where you're using free agent dollars, right? They signed a free agent. His name is Michael Wacha. And I think that's the point he's saying. And of course, JJ says things and then does things that maybe aren't exactly what he said he would do. And that's fine. That's what I want from my GM. I want my GM to be a little bit, I don't want to say, deceptive, but sneaky, right? And JJ has shown some ability for that. I think his point, though, simply is it's not our top priority. Like if we're going to spend free agent dollars, our first priority is for additions to the lineup, which I agree with. He should never rule out anything. I don't think he's ruling out anything, but I think his priority right now is for hitters, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I think it also speaks to how much these trades, like when they happen, we hear about it, but a lot of these trades are laid months, if not even years in advance. Like conversations are had. Okay, we have this interest. We'll be there. Okay, check with me if you get to that point. And I think there's whatever they're going to do, there's groundwork that's been laid, right? Like when he gave that shopping list, because I just said, if you go out and you put a shopping list together and it has to fill that list, I think you can run into problems because you end up overpaying on certain things. But I also think that list that he had put together was largely because he already had an idea where he was on a lot of those things that he was working on. Listen, if you want to know where you are when it comes to your parking lot, Gann Asphalt and Concrete is Kansas City's best when it comes to handling any and all parking lot problems. They've been solving them for more than 30 years. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, Randy, let's get into the Brady Singer comments. We'll dive in there. We like Brady a lot. We thought he made significant strides this year. He continues to add to his repertoire to help him navigate lineups, and he'll continue to do that. So Brady's a lock in our rotation. When you look at our top four, Brady is in it. We like to have him because you can never have enough depth. What does that say to you?
I don't think it says as much as people might be reading into it. Like, let's go through the sentence by sentence. So Brady's a lock in our rotation. I mean, as it stands right now, yeah, of course he's a lock. Like if he's on the roster,
he's in the rotation.
And he's healthy. Yes. He's not. They're not demoting him to the bullpen, right? Like there's absolutely no reason to move him out of that role. Continue for that. When you look at our top four, Brady is in it. Yes.
Okay. So, and that's the point. Those four guys, when they come to spring training, if those four guys are healthy, they will start in the rotation. It does not matter what happens. Everybody else, Chris Bubic, Daniel Lynch, Alec Marsh, anybody else you want to add to the equation, are all fighting for one spot.
Yes.
And he's earned that.
Yeah, and I think he has. But then the last sentence, we'd like to have him because you can never have enough depth. You know, he's under contract, so we'd like to have him. To me, actually, is kind of telling in the way he phrased that. Is like you have him. You don't have to say you like that. So to me, I mean, he's leaving the door open that like we'd like to have him, but if we can get a top of the lineup hitter for him, we might not have him anymore. You know, he's at least in that sentence is the conditional that we might not have him. So I'm not reading too much into this that he's an actual lock for the rotation in the sense that they won't trade him. Nowhere in there did he said we are not trading Brady Singer. He's nowhere in there did he say he is untradeable. He just said he's a lock for the rotation, which he is right now. So.
Yeah. But I'm with you in the sense that, you know, you read into that, we'd like to have him. It's like that's a little, you know.
I mean, for you and I who are, you know, conspiracy theorists on Brady, you know, we're Brady Singer truthers to begin with, right? We already think that he's going to be moved. So, you know, to you and me, I think we can definitely read into that what we want, which is that, yeah, he's available. He's on the market if the price is right. They're not trading him just to trade him, but they are willing to put him out there for the sake of the bat that they really need and that they recognize they need, because they're not looking for, you know, free agents in the rotation. We're not in the market for a starter. They're in the market for a hitter.
Yeah, we'd like to have him coupled with Chris Bubic as a starter. Right?
Like, you know, you can read a lot into that, right? So I think that right now, yes, he's a lock. He is one of the top. He is one of the four best starter pitchers on the Kansas City Royals right now.
Right.
But if, you know, in that fifth role, I mean, and frankly, I think Alec Marsh has a leg up on everybody else for the number 5 role, which he has earned this year. But if you have all 5 of those guys, and you also say we believe that Chris Bubic, you know, is a starter, then, well, you're not going to a 6-man rotation. I hope. With me, there's a solution that puts all of those sentences together and makes them all true. There's one thing you can do. And it's something you and I have been talking about for a very long time now.
Yeah, it is. And who's better, Chris Bubic or Brady Singer as a starter?
I mean, Singer,
who has more upside? Let's put it that way.
Well, I was going to say,
don't really know on Bubic yet.
I would argue Bubic might have a little more upside. I mean, Singer's floor definitely higher, because we don't know that Bubic can stay healthy to be a starter, right? But if you believe in the upside, for that reason, though, I also think that Singer probably still has more trade value, just because he's proven, if nothing else, that he can take the ball, if not 32 times a year, 26 to 28 times a year as a starting pitcher, and has done that for 4+ years now. I think he's going to have more value. But if the Royals believe that Bubic can do that job as well as Singer or close to it, then yeah, you trade the guy with the higher trade value and replace him with Bubic, and in your eyes, you're not losing anything from doing that.
Yeah. I do think that this is where you got to be right about your guys, right? You got to know your guys better than everybody else. And so
Exactly.
if you are this committed to Chris Bubic as being a starter, and you know what the upside is, and if you think the upside is higher, because do you think there's any upside left in Brady Singer?
I mean, in the sense of, do I think he can be better than he was this past year? Probably not, but what he was this past year was pretty good. I don't want to, when we talk about upside, we make it sound like, he wasn't already a good starting pitcher.
Well, at 32 years old, Greg Maddux had no more upside. Didn't mean he sucked. He was still the best.
Exactly.
He had no more upside. It just meant this is it. We know exactly what he is. There's no more room to get better. At this point, it's tinkering to hold on to what you got and beat Father Time. And so I think there is ability for Brady Singer to be better because he still doesn't really embrace the changeup. Right. He's just kind of perfected the two pitches he likes to throw. And he's had veteran guys around him. He's had Seth Lugo throws 10 pitches around him. He's had Zach Greinke around him, and it doesn't seem to be sinking in. So to me, and you've had a whole new wave of guys come in and work with him, the new coaching staff. So Brady Singer is what Brady Singer is, which I'm with you, is a good player. And so that's why, to me, if you are a team that's out there and you're thinking upside, you're like, well, I can get Bubic for less, and I think there's a higher end. I would be really interested. I'd love to sit and hear what the offers look like for both those guys. And if you put them both up there, what you're getting offered. But if you know your players best and Bubic, has the ability, then you should be moving Singer, which we've talked about many times, as you pointed out.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing to keep in mind is they both have the same amount of service time. They're both free agents in 2 years. So they're, you might think it feels like Singer's been here forever, which, because he's taken the ball pretty much every fifth day. Whereas Bubic was, they came up like a week or two after Singer, I think in 2020, they both debuted in the pandemic year. And it's easy to forget this, but in 2021, Bubic threw 130 innings and had an above average ERA. He had a 103 ERA plus. He wasn't terrible by any means as a starter, but then he was terrible in 2022. And then he got hurt in April 2023 and came back as a middle reliever. So it doesn't feel like he's been on the scene as long, but they are the same amount of service time. So if you do commit to Bubic, you have to keep in mind, even if you're right, he's going to be a free agent in 2 years. Right. So you could say, there's an argument you could make that we know what we have in Singer. There is still the theoretical upside of that third pitch. And when we talk about upside compared to he may not be any better than he was at his best, but he was better in 2022 than he was this year. I mean, he was good, very good this year. He was actually slightly better in 2022. He had a lower FIP. He had a better strikeout to walk ratio. That guy who was, a 3.23 ERA in 2020. I mean, he was the ace of the team, which wasn't saying much, but he was like a borderline number 2 guy as opposed to a number 3 starter. Mm-hmm. So you can make that case. If you get an equal trade offers, essentially, if a team comes to you and says, offers you a package and says, we'll take either one of them, you could absolutely make the case that, we'll stick with Singer and you take Bubic. And even if Bubic breaks out, well, he's going to be a free agent in 2 years anyway. I don't think you'll get equal offers. I think teams will see the safety of Singer and offer you more. In which case, if you, like you said, your players, if your internals say that Bubic can make it as a starting pitcher and stay healthy, then in that case, I would trade Singer and take my chances with Chris Bubic.
He continues to add to his repertoire to help him navigate lineups, and he'll continue to do that, which to me is, somewhat of his internal view of him, and he needs to continue to do that, which to your point, Brady Singer is good, but we know, we talked about a lot coming down the stretch. He's great against the bad teams, right? He struggles against the better teams. And now you're looking at a club that has a fan base that says, okay, how do we go further in the playoffs now? Right. So you have to view it differently.
Well, the other thing is you could also argue that the Royals might look at him, even if he is as good as he was this past year, that he's a bit of a luxury in the sense of if you're going to the postseason. I mean, Brady Singer faced one batter in the playoffs, and that wasn't because he was bad necessarily. It's because he was the number 4 starter, and you don't use the number 4 starter in the first round. And at least this year, with the way the days off lined up in the ALDS, you didn't use, no team was using a number 4 starter in the ALDS. So you're basically not going to use him as a starter until the 4th game of the ALCS if you get there.
Well,
which is great, but it's like if you have that guy who's really good and teams offer you a bat where you can play every day in a playoff lineup, then that might be more valuable to you, not just during the season, but especially in October.
a couple of things. I think one, the Guardians just are never going away. That seems to be clear.
True.
2, I think the Tigers are going to be badass, right? Like I think their finishing kick is who they're going to be next year. So I think they're probably going to be the consensus pick to win the division. Would you agree with that?
I mean, those 2 teams, I could see teams still saying the Guardians just because the Guardians every year seem to surprise on the upside. But I definitely think that when we see preseason predictions for next year,
right,
the Tigers consensus will be the Tigers are a better team than the Royals.
Okay,
if nothing else, Jackson Jobe is like maybe the best pitching prospect, one of the best pitching prospects in the sport. Like they have help coming from the minor league system that the Royals don't have.
Okay, so my point is you got to get better, right?
Yeah.
If you're a club, and I think there is a little bit of like, are we really gonna like the move may be to trade a Brady Singer, but they're like, well, we can't afford to take a step back. And I'll tell you this. If they go, I'll put it right now. It's October of 2025. The Royals are in the playoffs. Okay, forget how they got here. I'm going to ask you to think about how they got here. Is Brady Singer one of your 3?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think he's one of the.
Well, I think you may not want him to be, but I think he is because I don't think there's any way that the other 3 that are in front of him all make it to the end.
But there's also, I mean, I think the odds that he doesn't make it to the end is just about the same as them. Like, I don't know.
Why? He's never had been on the shelf really much at all, has he?
No, but I mean, with pitchers like Seth Lugo is where's the injury history there? I mean, he was in the bullpen for a while, but I think they actually kept his arm fresh, right? With Cole Reagans, it was Tommy John twice, but it was one long Tommy John recovery. He didn't come back and get hurt.
Right.
And I think that last, he's still kind of in that honeymoon period after Tommy John. Usually you get about 5 years before your wrist goes back up. He was back on the mound in 2021, so he's probably still a year or 2 away from worrying too much about that. Michael Walker would be the most likely, but the fact that the Royals gave him 3 years guaranteed tells me, or at least it sure as hell better tell me, that their internal evaluation of the health of his arm is that they have got good reports there and that they do not think he will break down. Yeah. So even if they make the playoffs, my point is there's a chance that they won't have him in higher than a number 4 starter role, in which case his October value is less than an everyday hitter's.
Yeah. My point just is they're not, all 5 guys aren't going to go like they did this past year.
No, that's unrealistic. Absolutely.
I think Singer has been dependable and has less mileage than some of the guys. And so I think there's a pretty good chance has either been more dependable or has less mileage on pretty much the other 3. So I think if you go, a reason to go with them is you're looking around going, wow, this is a pretty tough division. I need guys I can count on. And I feel like I can count on them. I think that's the reason why they stay there. All right, let's move to the next one. We are looking to try to add some on base to our team, and ideally it would be in the leadoff spot and maybe somewhere in the middle of the lineup. If we could do that, I think we'd have a much better team. He said some more things about guys on base for the guys they have. Also talked about that they're not really, and this was a little bit concerning, not as much into like putting the ball in play. He said they're a put that. Let me get the exact quote because it was something to the effect of we're a put the ball in play team, which scared me a little bit from the standpoint of
well, if they're emphasizing contact over like plate,
right?
Yes.
Like, are you going all in or are you not? And so, and it's not in the quote, but I heard the audio of it. It's not in the quote in the story that Andy Rogers wrote, but it is the audio. And he said, basically, we run. We'd like a guy who can steal a base. he added that into the mix as well.
The quote I have here is, he said, "So on base is a big focus, especially when we want to put the game in motion and be athletic."
Yes.
Maybe that's the quote. It's an interesting quote, because on base ability and quote unquote athleticism, or putting the game in motion, those things sometimes are diametrically opposed. Like what he's describing, is a guy who is basically a high average contact hitter who also draws walks. There aren't a lot of guys like that in the major leagues, right? Maybe he's talking about like the problem would be if he's talking about like a Luis Arias type, where you think he's an on base guy, and he is an on base guy if he's winning the batting title, but he's actually not a walk guy, right? Not a guy who gets on base, and so too much of his value is tied up in his batting average, which makes him a little bit overrated and overpriced in the trade market. I mean, what the Padres gave up to get him was a lot for a guy who, he won the batting title, but like does nothing else. He doesn't hit for power, doesn't walk, doesn't play good defense. They played him a lot at first base. Like, 318 batting average it sounds great, but a 360 on base and a 390 slug from a first baseman, not great. So, it's a balance. I very much like the comment about looking to add on base, and obviously, and then saying ideally it would be in the leadoff spot, because the Royals OBP from the leadoff spot of the lineup was 270 this year. Okay. Not just last in the American League, last by 23 points, like a massive gap between the Royals, and it was the White Sox, of course, because it's the White Sox, who had a 293 OBP. I mean, 23 points worse than the White Sox. There was nobody on base for Bobby Witt. We talked about this all year. And so, it's a no-brainer, but it's still good to hear him say not just, we need a better hitter, more, contact. No, on base, specifically on base. And then also interesting, he said, and maybe somewhere in the middle of the lineup. Because if you look at the Royals on base percentage by lineup spot, all right, so here we go. 270, like I said, from the leadoff spot. 386 from the number 2 spot, which was 99% Bobby Witt, obviously. From the number 3 hitter, 314. Frankly, not very good for the number 3 spot in the lineup, but above league average, which was like 308 or something. 303 from the cleanup spot, mostly Salvador Perez. From the 5th spot lineup, 285. And from the 6th spot lineup, 296. Like, the Royals' middle of the lineup was not even getting on base at a 300 OBP clip. Like, they do. They really do need 2 on-base sources that they should add a lineup. One at the leadoff spot and one batting 5th or 6th. It's not a difficult diagnosis to render, but sometimes the obvious is, just because something's obvious doesn't mean that teams will necessarily address it. So I'm glad that they are at least expressing their understanding of the problem, and now we will see if they can actually attack it.
Yeah, and that is, I do think, I do love him saying on base percentage, but it's also kind of like, like we all are, right? Like if I were another general manager, it's like, we all are. But are you going to pay for it? Like, because it isn't Moneyball and nobody valuing on base percentage, right? Like that's the question: is what is it going to cost to go get that guy, and how much do they value it? Do they value it over defense? Do they value it? That's why I think it's important to include the part about the athleticism, because it seems to be a qualified on base percentage,
right?
Not all out. We want guys who can get on base. Like they're not putting Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff. They're not putting Anthony Rizzo in the leadoff.
No,
right?
No, they're not.
Which other teams have and have gone to playoffs doing that.
But right. And the Royals, they're not, they're not to that degree now. And some of that is because the teams that do that, it's not just because they're like, we want, we value, offensive ability so greatly that we'll put a high strikeout guy in the leadoff spot. It's usually because they have such an embarrassment of offensive options that they can afford to put a great hitter in the leadoff spot, right? Like the Orioles had 39 home runs from the leadoff spot this year. No other team in the American League, I think, had more than 23. Is that because the Orioles think, power is important in the leadoff spot? Or is it just like they have so many freaking hitters, they can just put Gunnar Henderson, one of like the 5 best hitters in baseball, for most of the season and put him lead off because they have other guys, right? So that is some of it. Here's what I will bring up as a result of these quotes, so that I was not thinking about even last week when we were talking about our free agents that we liked. I kind of skipped over this guy because I thought he was too good a free agent, and now I'm wondering if the
Juan
Royals
Soto.
No, Juan Soto. I did not skip over him. I don't care what his price tag is. I want Juan Soto, but no, the guy that I thinking might, if the Royals are serious about this, about prioritizing on base in the leadoff spot, but also like not a Kyle Schwarber type, not a guy who gets on base but also strikes out 200 times a year and hasn't stolen a base in 6 years or whatever. They actually want a guy who can kind of do a little bit of everything, but on base is definitely part of his skill set. And they're willing to spend money, which would obviate the need for them to trade talent. I'm starting to wonder if Jurickson Profar is somebody that they could go after. You're shaking your head, but Jurickson Profar had a 380 OBP this past year. That's all. I'm just saying that. Like, I did not, again, a week ago, I didn't want to bring him up because I thought he was an unrealistic target. I'm just saying that if JJ's serious about what he's saying, you can't say that and be serious about it without at least exploring what it would take to sign Jurickson Profar to be your leadoff hitter.
All right, so let's entertain it. What would it take?
I've seen the estimates of a 3-year, $45 million contract.
I mean, and you're talking about ages 32, 33, and 34.
That's the risk. I mean, what he did is, as a 31-year-old this past year, is worth a lot more than 15. I would sign up for that in a heartbeat for $15 million a year.
But there's no evidence that that's going to continue.
The evidence, there is evidence, but it's a long, long time ago when Jurickson Profar was literally the number one prospect in the sport 12 years ago, right? And he had a series of injuries, debilitating injuries, which really got his career off track. The question is, what he did this past year, is that a sign of this former potential superstar actually tapping into his talent finally, or was this just, for lack of a better term, a lucky year? And I can't answer that, but I don't think, a random 31-year-old would have a season like this. His season was not just good, it was broad-based. Like, he hit 24 home runs. He had 76 walks and just 101 strikeouts. I mean, his strikeout to walk ratio was exceptional. The guy commanded the strike zone.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine that's a total fluke.
I like this. Comment says he only plays well for the Padres. Tyler says, I'm tired of hearing that name. Profar is the definition of buying way too high. I agree. If you believed in Jurickson Profar, then he would have been on this team, right? If this organization believed in Jurickson Profar, he would have been on this team when he sucked at Colorado, right? You would have gone and gotten this guy. There is no reason to pay top dollar for Jurickson Profar. He has been a tease his entire career.
You might be right. I will say this. The Royals almost signed a guy last year.
And let me just say this real quick before, and I'll let you finish. Sorry to interrupt, but you might be right. I just don't think the Royals are the franchise that can contest that limit. They can't swing and miss. He can't go back to being, the 236, 316, 364 guy he was in Colorado in 23, right before he went back to the Padres. Like, he can't be that. They can't pay $15 million and have the guy suck. And I think there's just way too many ups and downs in the guy's
100%. It would be a risky move. The point I would make, a year ago, like, the Royals were strongly considering signing a player. They were rumored to be linked to him 2 years ago, and he signed with the Padres instead. And then he became a free agent. And the Royals, he had a good year with the Padres, and the Royals ended up giving him top dollar to sign. His name is Seth Lugo. All right, and like, you know what? It's sometimes when you were right the first time and you just didn't pull the trigger. It doesn't mean you're necessarily buying high. Sometimes it means that what you saw in a player was, justified by his performance, and now you feel even stronger that what you thought he could do, he actually is capable of doing.
But Lugo hasn't been all over the map. He performed as a reliever.
He did,
right?
but you were asking him to do something he hadn't done before.
Right.
In Jurickson's case, you were asking him to stay healthy, which is something he hasn't done before. So many of the issues with Profar have just been health. That's my point, I guess. That if you think he can stay healthy,
well, and why would you think he's going to stay healthy? Now that he's older,
he's actually stayed quite healthy the last 3 years. I think he's been on the injured list once.
Games played. Came up with Texas at age 20 in 2013 and played in 85 games. Missed the entire 14 season. Then played 90, 22, 146, 139, 56, 137, 152, 125, and then this year 158. I mean, Tyler said it perfectly. It is the epitome of buying high. The stock is at its highest mark, and you want to jump in. I can't help you with that.
It is a risky move, but I just think, unlike most players I look at who have a career year at 31, I just think I think there's a little less risk than I ordinarily would say with that, because I think the talent base there was so high originally, and the fact that he hit like this makes me think that some of that talent is still there. He's no longer a shortstop or a second base. He doesn't play, he's lost a lot of value along the way because he's a left fielder now and not particularly good at it, to be perfectly honest. But I kind of believe in the bat. God help me, but I do. So I'm just saying, like, it would be, and the thing is, there are a lot of bats out there you can sign this year that have power. There aren't a lot of bats out there in the free agent market that can put up, a 350 OEP. There's Juan Soto, and Jurickson Profar might be the next guy on the list if you're just looking for on base.
Yeah, and Casey Curtis said, I watched a lot of Padres, not sold. Robert said, right, what's his career on base percentage? Well, let me help you out. For his career, he's 245, 331, 395 slash for a 726 OPS.
331, given how where his career was, especially early in his career. I mean, looking at his on base percentages when he was from age 19 to age 24 might not be that useful, but 331 is not bad. 331 would be not just second on the Royals, but like easily like second. The only guy who had an OBP that high was Bobby Witt. Salvi was at 330, which was aided by 9 intentional walks. But even his career OBP would make him the second best on base guy on the team.
And how many seasons has he had better than a 331 on base in his career?
Better than that?
Yeah, that's his average.
Yeah, three
times. Which speaks to how much the 380 this year is doing the heavy lifting.
But it's three times in the last 7 years, basically. I mean, like I said, I would just throw out the first 4 seasons of his career. Again, all that 7+ years ago, and where he missed not 1 but 2 seasons, 2014 and 2015 with injuries, and that completely wrecked him early on.
All right, so do you want me to? So you want the last 7 years? So back to 19?
Back to 18.
You want to include 18 or not include 18?
No, include 18 for the last 7 years, 2018 to 2024.
During that time, so his formative years, 248, 336, 408. Yeah. Exactly. Make that noise again.
Yeah, it's not bad.
744.
Again, it would be, I guess, if you count the slug, that would make him, I'm guessing, the third best hitter on the team.
Well, I have no doubt that he improves the club. The question is, at what cost? And does it
that's what I'm saying. I'm not going to be upset if they don't sign him. I'm just saying, and 3 and 45 is kind of pushing it. But if you believe that this year represents more of what he's capable of, I think it's worth it. If he's going to give you that career line, 3 and 45 is probably an overpay. But if you want on base, I'm just saying he's somebody you have to consider. Okay. Because there's not a lot of on base on the free agent market. I mean, the other alternative is you go out and trade for it. But even then, it's like, are you willing to give up the team's value on base now? So are you willing to give up the amount of talent it's going to take to get an on base guy at the top of your lineup?
The Coffin Corner podcast is always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. What do you want to close with? Right? Well, we'll pick one of these two. I'll give you Jac Caglianone, who a couple of folks have mentioned up here in the comments and what he's doing in the Arizona Fall League, or who the Royals should be targeting for an extension.
Let's talk Caglianone, because I think we could save that other topic.
I think there's a lot of things on that. So we've got the whole offseason. So where's your level of excitement about what you're seeing at Caglianone in the Fall League?
Well, when we did our prospect rankings, you will recall I had Carter Jensen number 1.
I did not. I had
I know
Caglianone.
you didn't have Blake Mitchell number 1. Maybe you had him.
No.
Okay, maybe it was Caglianone 1 and then Mitchell 2.
1 Caglianone, Mitchell 2.
Okay.
Carter
I know you had
Jensen.
Carter Jensen 3. Okay, well I had Carter Jensen 1 and Caglianone 2. So after what I've seen in the Arizona Fall League, I am prepared to say that Carter Jensen is still number 1 on my list. And the reason is Caglianone's gotten a lot of attention and deservedly so, and I'll get to it. Carter Jensen has only played in 9 games. He's hitting 400 with a 523 on base and an 829 slug in the Arizona Fall League. So both of them have been opening some eyes and turning some heads. And I actually feel quite good about the fact. And in 9 games, Carter Jensen 4 homers and 8 walks. Like, yeah, I think people are starting to pick up on Carter Jensen. So let's not minimize what he's done in terms of performance. His numbers are great. Caglianone's his offensive numbers, like his actual production, it's fine. It's nothing special, especially Arizona Fall League, usually the high offense league. Let's see. I have his numbers here: 247 batting average, 314 on base, 442 slugging, 4 homers in 18 games, 7 walks, 17 strikeouts. Not bad by any means, not great. But the reason we're talking about Jac Caglianone, the reason why everyone's talking about Jac Caglianone, the numbers we've been referring to, I'm sure you've seen them, are the exit velocities. Those are special. And you may have seen like a two game stretch where he hit, I believe, a home run 113.1 miles an hour. He had another home run, I think it was a 2 home run game, 110. No, it was a single. He had a single, 117.3 miles an hour. I'm not certain about this. That the single might be the hardest hit ball registered by StatCast in Royals history. Like I'm not. Bobby Witt is topped out at around 116. I don't know if any Royals player has hit a ball 117 miles an hour. He hit that ball. The home run I mentioned, 113. Vinny Pasquantino's career high exit velo was 112.7 miles an hour. Although I heard that through the grapevine, he did hit 113 miles an hour foul. That doesn't register.
Okay.
And the point is, that's not a knock on Vinny, obviously, because like you get up to 110 as a max exit velo. If you do that, you have major league power. Like you are quality. You get up to 115, 117. Like you're not even you're like a half tick below the rarefied air of like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, right? Like 120 is like it's the equivalent of what 100 miles an hour on a fastball would have been maybe 15 years ago, where you've seen it, but it's extremely rare, exceedingly rare. Those exit, and for him to do that in like hit 3 balls that hard in 2 days, I think he's hit 8 balls so far in the Arizona Fall League, 110 or harder. And I've seen some of the swings, and it doesn't look like he's swinging out of his shoes.
That's what I want to get to, because I saw the video of him in the home run derby, and it's easy. It's easy power. I mean, it's like even like Mike Trout. Like I remember, you remember a couple of years ago when the video came out of Mike Trout at a Top Golf and hitting a golf ball.
Yes, I do.
And just the you could see the club head speed that was there, but you also could see the violence in the swing. Right? Like, I'm like, my God, like, how does that body take that? Well, it hasn't. Ever since then, it hasn't. And I think he'd even broken down that year before. That's the thing about this kid is it's not grunt your way through every swing. And, it looks very repeatable, very easy. And listen, guys who swing that hard are kind of like guys who throw that hard. I mean, I do think there'll be injuries there because that have that much power. You got to get the bat head going that fast to be able to, generate that kind of power. So, I mean, I'm sure, but it just looks awfully easy, awfully smooth. I mean, and good Lord, I mean, the man can wear a uniform. Like, he looks impressive.
I mean, what I would say about Jac Caglianone is it's completely understandable why the Royals would take him with the 6th overall pick in the draft. Like, he's done nothing to make you ask, what were they thinking? Not at all, right? He's not refined. right? Which is why the results, even in A-ball this year and in the Arizona Fall League, they're just okay. But this is his first professional
They're
season.
better than okay, Randy. Come on, they're better than okay.
I mean, they're not bad. I'm just saying, but he didn't have like the best debut, statistically speaking, of any first round pick.
But he's fresh out of the draft. He's
exactly, that's my point. He's
4 home runs in 18 games is just meh.
Well, I think he only had in the minor leagues. I think he had like 2 home runs, and one of them was off a position player, right? So, but my point is, that's what I'm saying. I'm not worried about that. Look at Bobby Witt's first professional season, right? Like, it was just okay. There was nothing special there, but that's okay. It's his first. He's still learning the nuances of like facing professional caliber pitching day in and day out. I know Keith Lawson down there right before he went off and was saying he looked tired. He's had a very long season. Let's not forget, not only was he, hitting 35 home runs in college ball this year, he was also pitching. Like, this guy has been a two-way player for half the season. But the point is, the raw tools are absolutely there. Between the exit velos, like you said, the fact that it's easy, the fact that he's listed at 6'5" and 250 and looks every bit the part, like you absolutely could see a scenario where this guy doesn't just like turn into a great prospect and a great major league hitter, but he does it like really, really quickly. Like when the light bulb goes on for a guy like this, it goes on sometimes overnight. I'm not making this comparison as a player. I just want to point out, when you talk about big hulking dudes, think about Aaron Judge, who's 6'7" and 282, right? Aaron Judge in the minor leagues, all the way up, was a good prospect. He did not look like he was going to be the most fearsome power hitter in the major leagues for the better part of a decade, right? In his final minor league season, age 24, in AAA in 2016, he had 270, 366, 489. He had 19 home runs in 93 games in AAA in 2016. And then came up and hit 179 for the Yankees in 27 games, hit 4 home runs. The next year, he set the all-time major league record for home runs by a rookie with 52, right? Like, it came together, and, nobody was accusing him of using steroids. It wasn't like the last time somebody hit 49 home runs as a rookie, Mark McGwire. It's like, no, look at the man. You don't need steroids. You don't need performance enhancers when you are that big naturally. Jac Caglianone's not that big, but he's big. He doesn't hit the ball that hard, but he hits the ball harder than 99% of major leaguers.
Yeah,
it's a nice hunk of clay that the Royals can sculpt into something, assuming they don't waste their time trying to have him pitch as well, which I really hope they don't. I really feel like this guy, move him to right field if you can. You take advantage of his arm out there, but just let this man hit and hope that he can be the first Royal to hit 50 home runs in a season.
The Kaufman Corner podcast is always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best, with free consultations, no commissions, and in-house crews. Plus, every project comes with a written warranty. Why would you go anywhere else? Trust your parking lot. The best in the business. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Don't have clients playing bumper cars in the lot. Get a brightly striped lot today. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. For the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.